Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. And today, I would like to dedicate this recording to our dear friend and loyal listener, Sharon Davis.
Thank you, Sharon Davis, for your feedback, your kind words, your inspiration to keep us going.
Well, I think she might have this connection with us that has to do with intuition. Today's topic.
Instinct, or is it intuition? What's the difference? We're going to explore that area.
Okay, Tina, so have you reviewed the definition of intuition?
Well, no, but I did review the word discernment because it's going to tie into our intuition. But why don't you begin with that? And then I'm going to backtrack over to judgment, discernment, and then we'll get into instinct, intuition. So give us your definitions.
You got all the vocabulary going on here today. Okay, so intuition, is according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the ability to understand something immediately without need for conscious reasoning. So it has to do with that very fast response. It's not one that is that thoughtful judgment. Okay? And then further, according to this article that I found, which was pretty interesting article, I'll put the links as always in the notes. It's called The Neuroscience of Women's Intuition. It's by Dr. Judith Orloff. And anyhow, and she says, according to a 2008 study in the British Journal of Psychology, intuition is defined as what happens when the brain draws on past experiences and external cues to make a decision, but it happens so fast that the reaction is at an unconscious level.
I like that definition so much better.
Well, they match.
They do. I just like the details of the second one.
Well, one's a brain person expert, and the other is, a dictionary. Okay, so
I have to go back into, because we tie things into teaching, and I think that's the difference. The first definition is the flat, and then the second definition goes to the deep.
Oh, that's interesting. Or it could have been the intonation that I used as I was reading.
Oh,
because that does change things too. Well, I'll try that first one again.
Yeah.
It's the ability to understand something immediately without need for conscious reasoning.
Yeah, no. I think it goes deeper with the scientific study.
Okay, but
thanks.
It does tie into teaching too. As we become masters of our craft in teaching, definitely intuition comes into play. I mean, we use that a lot with how we're reading our audience. Am I reaching those kids, and to what level am I reaching them? When is the right time to push this or to pull back? Because
or take a break and run outside, hit the tree, and come back in because you're losing them.
Right. And it's it is, you don't have time to stop and think and reflect and all that while you're teaching and managing the classroom. So intuition comes into a lot of place. So we've practiced intuition a lot throughout our lives, Tina.
I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right. You're right. In teaching, we use that skill nearly every day.
Yeah.
Every hour, if not every moment.
Yes, I agree. All right. So did you want to go back to your definition of what you're talking about, or explore more of the intuition?
Well, as a learner, the way I learn, now I'm going to back up the backup. But when I learned Spanish, there were the object pronouns that would be difficult for me. So I took German, which has even more of that and does different things with them. And what I want to say is that sometimes I have to have a comparison to really understand. So today, when I introduced judgment versus discernment is like instinct versus intuition, I just wanted to explain how I understand intuition now because of that analogy. So,
interesting.
When you make a judgment, this is from what I read. I just want to give credit to the author, Becoming Sacred Space by Michelle Ann Hobart. In her book, she explained that because it's about, evolving as a human. So she was talking about how, judgment is the immediate saying, this is good, this is bad, versus discernment, which is when you take the time to process it and come up with a more reasoned reason that works for you personally in a judgment arena. Um, so what she was explaining there, she applied to instinct. So instinct is like the animal reaction for survival. But intuition is too, but it's a little bit deeper and more complex because it's not just to survive in the moment so you don't get eaten by the lion. It is also an instinct, but it's more evolved in that it takes more information in, like the
It's
second definition
it's
you said,
experiential.
taking the past experience, applying it to what's happening before you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, and I was thinking, what's the opposite of intuition? And the other, it's intellect. They say it's judgment. And so that the idea of instinct being tied more to intuition kind of makes sense. And yet, it's all part of the same. So I don't know if there's a direct opposite of intuition. But anyhow, moving on. What does it mean when you hear intuition? And we're talking about primarily women's intuition today. And why is it they never talk about men's intuition, which is interesting, but because intuition's so tied to women. And why is that? So what is intuition to you? Or why is it tied to, women's intuition? Because if we're talking purely at the teacher level, like we were just a moment ago, male teachers will be doing the same thing as they're monitoring their class and using their intuition to guide their lesson and instruction and try to reach individual students.
Okay, you just opened up a big, big, big can
Uh-huh.
of worms. So I got to answer the question, men's intuition that you've never heard and women's. Again, that is the training of our society.
Mm-hmm. We're in a patriarchy.
I think if we were all living in the tribes in the Amazon without having had these things, men would still have intuition, as would women, and there would not be a gender differentiation, I believe. And I believe that in our culture, it's men are trained to cut off the emotion and think only with the brain, and women are supposed to be at home. This is the old patriarchal, way of living. And so women stay at home and you raise the children and you get in tune with them. And so they practice attunement with their children.
Oh, not just their children, their husband as well, and all his needs.
Oh, excuse me. I so forgot the first and foremost part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women's intuition's tied to it also because I'm thinking so much of your day as a woman, whether it's the old model of what a woman's role in society looks like or now, is you've got to make snap decisions. They've got to be fast and quick, and that's exactly what intuition is. It's based on your experience, it's based on your perceptions of what's going on, your feelings of what's going on, what you pick up, cultural cues and social cues, which again women are trained and apparently it's tied to women do a better job at that than men do in general. Um, it's when you're having to respond quickly and make decisions about everything in the house or in your job or whatever it is, then you're practicing it and you're using it and you start to trust it as well. A lot of people talk about their intuition and it's like almost something they honor because they respect it. Um, people talk about when you don't listen to your gut, when you don't listen to what your first reaction was, then you're sorry you did that, and you've learned then to trust your instinct, to trust your intuition. So here's the thing: when you think about intuition, because instinct is tied to it, instinct is more about survival, where it's like intuition's like the next level of that instinct. I think it's almost so they call it a higher consciousness. It's about um, health and It's not about the exact response to surviving. So it's the next level of survival, if you will, the quality of life.
So tying it in, as you were saying, with the body, it's a higher level of awareness. So there's this thing called intuitive eating. And it's like we don't eat because the clock says it's 9 o'clock. And we don't eat the vegetable because we're supposed to. It's actually eating when you're hungry, uh, which requires you being connected to your intuition to know what those hunger signals really are, if they come from the brain or if they actually come from the body. And then also, intuitive eating is like what you need to eat. Because, for instance, I crave vegetables. And when I crave the vegetable, let's say, or I really want whole wheat bread, or it's listening to my body, it's telling me what it needs to eat. So there, anyway, that goes back to the intuition. And I think it's interesting that you tied it in. It's more than just like being in a situation, it's even down to intuitively eating, intuitively getting up, intuitively going to bed when you're tired. But now I'm going to jump into a bigger thing and see what you think. I think that intuition is a lost sense in most of us because we are forced to look at the clock to continue within this industrial revolution era of when to work and how to work. We don't go to bed when we should because we push ourselves through it, because there may not be time to sleep. It may not be an appropriate time to take a nap. So I think we have lost and deadened our intuition for sure.
Well, I could see your point. Intuition being dulled or clouded, but we were just talking about how we used it in the classroom, in the setting all the time. Maybe for other responses, maybe for those more subtle things that we don't even. Maybe it's because we don't reflect on how we've used our intuition, But I hear what you're saying. People talk about their intuition as a gift, as this higher thing, and there's almost like a sacredness of it. It's like a special force that people use, and people who are intuitive are very proud of it. They recognize it because they see the value that it's given them in their life.
Back to the classroom, I want to bring it back to, because people that don't teach won't understand this. It is survival. If you
It's
lose
true.
those
It's true.
30 children, chaos
Good point.
happens.
Good point.
So it is a survival instinct when we go in to teach. You know what I mean? Skipping a meal is not a survival thing. But being in a classroom, having everybody be on board without anarchy is intuition.
The cage
It's
tigers.
survival.
Yeah, cage tigers. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but to go to the next level of then like you really are watching and observing a child and oh, this isn't responding for them. So when we use it to craft the instruction, that's different. That goes beyond the survival. I hear what you're saying though, because I felt that feeling of you're a circus lion tamer and there they
Yes, you
are.
are.
Yeah, yeah. But we don't have whips or anything else. So,
No.
yeah, yeah. Um,
So we really have to be crafty. We really have to be masters of our craft to not
mhm,
do it by force and fear. That
absolutely.
really is another level of mastering your craft.
It's true. It's true. So you had mentioned, even the intuitive eating. It's interesting because this comes to another tie about what research has said about intuition. So back to that article I was saying, um, it's from a book called Guide to Intuitive Healing. Um, the Let me quote. Here we go. She says, "I discussed the neuroscience of intuition. An important aspect of this is that there are neurotransmitters in the gut that can respond to environmental stimuli and emotions in the present. It's not just about past experiences. When those neurotransmitters fire, you may feel the sensation of butterflies or uneasiness in the stomach. Researchers theorize that gut instinct, which sends signals to your brain, plays a large role in intuition." So, so it makes sense, when we've all felt the butterflies in the stomach. We've all felt this thing in the gut that goes, at that. And we always, I tend to think that is like a survival thing, like it's about a fear based thing. But sometimes it's not. It could be the delightful butterflies. of meeting someone that is attractive. It could be a moment when you're looking at the beauty of nature and you feel a connection to something and you figure something out about yourself or some problem you're trying to solve. So I could see how it easily would tie into to intuition.
And again, I love the scientific explanation about the neurotransmitters and the gut, the brain, or and the heart. Because oftentimes when you get that feeling in your gut, there's also a race in the heart. It's all connected.
It's so cool, and paying it like you say, in our modern society, we don't pay attention to a lot of these things. We're moving too fast, and if we slow down, we'll realize. I mean, one of the examples is like intuition comes can come from a dream, even where you wake up from a dream. It's like, oh, it told me something. So your brain's functioning. It's creating all this stuff in your head, but that feeling when you wake up and you go, oh, this is important, and you listen to that dream or what that dream implied. It's kind of a cool thing. Sixth sense. It's your sixth sense.
How do you feel in looking at intuition outside of a classroom? How connected do you think you are?
Not enough, although I will say I am an interesting combination of um, gut my gut reaction, or and so I use that expression in fact. So that's telling me that I do make some quick decisions. I'm a brainstormer and I come up with a lot of ideas, and I can make a quick reaction. Let's try this. Let's go that. Let's go and be spontaneous. And I think that's intuition. At the same time, I can also, when it's important for me to reflect on things and go back and study and analyze and then make a decision, even then, once you've gone over all the information, there's a gut feeling when you have to make a decision. And I'll go with my gut. I trust it.
I didn't used to because I think culturally and within my marriage, it was kind of dulled and if not completely gone. Maybe that's why I like teaching because it renewed my sense of knowing. So I would say that now I'm becoming more in tune with my body than ever. And I have now learned that I sit still when I have decisions.
Mm,
And when I sit still in silence and ask myself, like, do I do this? And then I wait a minute and I listen and I feel my body. So if I
mm,
feel my muscles tense, if I feel ick is somewhere, I know the answer. Or a relieving of stress. So then let's say I ask, do I want to do this? And if I feel and say and give the scenario to myself, like, do you want to do this? This being blah 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 blah. And if my body releases and I feel the muscles relax, that lets me know too. So I've come to a new place in stopping, sitting in silence, and then feeling it in my body, paying attention to what my body says, which I've never done before because I was always on the go, 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 make a decision fast, and it's changed a lot.
It's interesting. The That's an interesting way to use intuition because you have to have discipline to slow down and stop and then do it. I guess if you practice it enough, it is instamatic. But to slow down that long, it kind of doesn't match with the definition of intuition, and yet it is because you're listening to your body, and it's not about mentally analyzing and processing in your brain, but rather waiting to feel what it feels. So that is pure intuition, but it's mixed in with a discipline, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and I just thank you for that word and that use because it is something that has developed. I call it my mental strength training.
Mm,
That's taken time and lots of practice. So it's taken years to get to the point where now when I have a decision, yeah, it's like a methodical thing to do. It's like, okay, Tina, time to go into silence. And then I do it. But like you said, it's taken discipline to slow the train down and not be impulsive in my intuition because I think sometimes I didn't know it was intuition. I think I walked around with a great deal of anxiety, not even knowing it
mm.
was there. So I was tight, my jaws were clenched. I found out I'm a grinder at night. I have to have a mouth guard because I've like grind down my teeth. Um, so now with taking the time, uh, yeah, I've learned that my body responds to stress. And if it releases, then I know it's a good choice. But I couldn't even be there before.
All right, intuition. It's a we were talking earlier about how some people perceive of it as wisdom, and yet and it is acquired because it's based on experience, and so there is wisdom in that. This article that I have talked about says that many people rely on their intuition. They rely on snap judgments. And are we even aware? That's the question. Are we even aware that we rely on snap judgments? And that's kind of like ties back to what you're saying, just slowing down and thinking about how we go through the day. I know that I rely on my judgments real quickly, and and um, and yet at the same time, I also know I need to slow down and evaluate things that are more important that require that level of um, of processing. But I do. I think I do rely on it.
Okay, so I'm going to throw out something kind of big, and it has to do with the psychology, because where I think intuition gets confused is, for example, if you marry someone or fall in love with someone and you don't really connect your past, sometimes what feels right is only because it's comfortable and what you know. So, a lot of unhealthy relationships, if you were raised in a dysfunctional family, you will end up finding someone who is dysfunctional, but you don't realize it because it feels good, because it feels normal to you, because you don't know something different. And that's where intuition can be blinded because you're not actually using intuition, you're using familiar. So there is a little gray
Hmm.
area. It's not
Hmm.
so cut and dry. I just want to point that out.
Well, and that's interesting. If you know that in your head, then you can slow down and go back over and assess it. Huh? Was this intuition or is this just a familiar pattern that I'm falling into? No.
Which brings me back to the original analogy of judgment, snap judgment, good or bad, versus discernment, where you take time.
Hmm.
So I think discernment should work with intuition. And that's what you were saying. Like you might make a decision, Sue, but often you will stand back and take some time to process it. So I think intuition is telling us something, but I think sometimes we have to discern it
Well, it's also
and see.
about how important is it? What priority is it?
Right, exactly.
So yeah. You know, um, with regard to your intuition about health, it's interesting. I think that's where we need to get I know that I need to get better at understanding my body and listening to my body because I have, the aches and pains of someone my age. I've practiced and I've learned and practiced over a long period of time to ignore pain. And I think that that's a coping method, and you have to use it. I mean, you can't go around complaining about your aches and pains all the time. Although as we get older, we do. Um, or we share them at least. That's good. But to listen when your body, and to be able to feel when your body is not, when you're suspicious that there might be a health issue. However, that could also, I think, is in our modern society, really, we promote hypochondriac kind of behaviors, and that we think everything is cancer or everything is your heart issue. And yet we're told, listen to that. If you feel it, you should do something about it. Or maybe slow down and just listen to your body some more. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's an interesting question I have. What do you think?
I pick up another thing. When you said I have an ability to knock out pain. So I go back into the classroom and there are two things that come to mind. And first is to ignore the fact, we've talked about it before, that my bladder is so full it hurts. I ignore it.
It's true.
And it's taken some time now outside of the classroom to know that that isn't healthy. And to, when I have to go to the bathroom, why am I holding it?
Hmm.
And I think part of it is the training and
Yep,
teaching.
that's true.
Number two, I bruise, I think, rather easily, but I also think it's because of the force. So I think I especially in teaching, so needed to get from point A to point B to the other side of the classroom, to get to the groups with questions, to get to, the kid that's acting out, whatever it is, that I would crash through tables. I don't know how I didn't land on my face in all those years, but I crashed through tables to get to where I'm going, tripping over backpacks on the floor. And I got bruised all the time, and I ignored that too. I ignored, it's like it hurts, but I had to keep going. I didn't have time to sit there and go, ouch, I just hurt myself. So I would come home with bruises up and down on my hips, and I couldn't figure it out till I realized, oh yeah, because that's the height of the table. And again, I think in our society in different ways, we decondition ourselves. We the basic feelings that we have, we numb out in order to perform the task that we need to do. And I think those are just two examples from teaching I want to share.
All right. So let's see. I'm thinking. So you didn't respond to my question about hypochondria, though. What do you think about?
Oh God.
Because I mean, we're supposed to listen to
I have so much to
our
say about it, and
body.
I just don't know how deep to go. I have a lot to say about it. Um,
And women get accused of hypochondria all the time, and women's health issues are often not resolved. And why is that? There's a lot of research that's done on quote medicine, but it's male medicine. And
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I without going into details to answer this question, I know a lot about obsessive compulsive disorder, and part of that is the hypochondria, the fear of disease. And again, I think what happens is underlying is a great deal of anxiety that's not been addressed as what it is. And I think it's a disconnect again between the real knowing and the mental that takes over. So I think your body knows, hey, something is fundamentally wrong, and your brain overrides it with fear. But I think, again, it's the taking the time to sit in silence and really feel your body, like get in tune with your body. And there is this knowing in you, a clarity of when it is a fear and when it is not. But you can't discern it if we're always being distracted, if we're always on the go, if we're always stressed out, if we're always in the state of anxiety.
Hmm.
You can't tune into it. So I think, again, it's calming yourself down, which is the hardest thing to do in our world the way it is. But if you can sit in silence, I believe that there is a knowing. I think, again, it's getting back to the pulling out your strong intuition that's been dulled. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
So there's one more thing that I've learned in therapy that I would love the world to know, and it makes a difference. So if we're talking about using the brain or versus the gut, when you catch yourself saying, I should, blah, 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 I should call this person, I should do this thing, don't do it. That's the other thing I've taught myself, because that is the brain usually overriding what you really know you don't need to do. It's going through the process of what we're supposed to do, which is cultural as well. But catch yourself how many times you say, I should. And if you listen to your body, it's usually in a not, because your body's saying, hell no, I don't want to do that. Stop it, stop it. And when you take the should away, then your body will relax. So just be aware. Every time you say, I should, listen to your body.
Hmm. So, in wrapping up here, I'm going to ask you if you can think of at the top of your head, um, when you've used intuition and uh, and you used it and it served you well. Can you think of an
Ah,
example?
oh, right away, one of the scariest. I have two. But the scariest one was coming out of a therapy office in the nighttime over in Sacramento, and I had to get to my car, and there was a man who was standing up against the stop sign, and everything in my body went, oh shit, this is not good. There was nothing. Um, he didn't move, but there were. All I knew is that I needed to stare him down and look at him with confidence to get to my car because I had to pass him to get to the car. And everything I'd learned was don't look weak. And so I did, and I stared him in the eyes, had a very deep hello, and I walked and I tried to stay as calm as possible and get in the car. But I knew at that moment, Sue, that was I was so close to being either raped, killed, mugged. It was bad. But again, um, I stuck strong to the strong because he knew it would be a fight, and I think he just saw it wasn't worth it.
What about that man made you feel that way other than it was dark outside and he was standing at a stop sign?
I think that's where we have to go into the intuition part. It was little pieces of body language. It was the looking at me with these glazed eyes, these daggery. There was no warmth. It was the eyes. It was the eye contact. It was the cockiness of the stance. Um, there was no one around. Why is he standing up against this pole? His arms were folded. But it was like the stance. The stance was like intimidating, trying to be and at the same time cocky, like uh, everything. It was
Yeah.
little pieces of body language.
And
Yeah,
for all that to be processed that quickly and yeah, you made a decision about what to do. So
yeah.
interesting. Good. I was thinking about, intuition, things that are often tied to your instinct, like the personal safety you just described. I think most women can come up with a handful of times when they've had to um, respond and react and make decisions real quickly for their safety. I was thinking about like during the interview process where when I've been on an interview panel with people and we're deciding who's going to be who deciding on a new teacher or a principal or whatever, and you're hearing all the facts and stuff. Again, you just look at the person, you're listening, and you observe the body language, and you get a feeling. You get a gut instinct, and I think about that. I think about my dear friend Karen, way back when, and we were interviewing for a sixth grade colleague, and she was a primarily a kindergarten teacher, but here she was, this older woman wanting the sixth grade job, and there was just a feeling I had about her. There were other candidates that maybe had sixth grade experience, but the feeling around her was like, okay, this is the person that I want to work with, that I know will be great with kids, and it was true.
And again, it's things that we've not really been taught, but it's the making eye contact. Did they ask you questions back? Was it a brag session? Is this person warm? Is this person cold? There's a lot you can feel and read. So how would you say your intuition is? Would you say it's like pretty honed in, or
Well, like I said earlier, I think, as I said earlier, I
yeah,
trust my intuition, and I've also
with people? I should be specific with people.
I think it has been pretty good. It's been pretty spot on, I think. There have been exceptions, but no, I get a good feeling around people, and unless they're really good at deception, um, or super flawed people, I don't think that you're going to get by the intuition radar. I think it works.
And I think for me, I'm slowly stepping into it. I think that my brain has always overridden what my body has told me about people.
Mm.
So I would always give people a second chance, a third chance,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be open to everybody. So I would say that I am now starting. I'm still feeling like more than a neophyte, but not much more than that, into actually reading people and accepting that what I see is true. So that's why I asked you, and that's what I meant to say, in
That's
people
interesting.
interactions. Yeah. So I think you might be wiser at this point, but this is like a baby skill that I'm still developing muscles in, because I can still completely override myself to give people the opportunity to prove. And I've often picked the wrong people to do that with.
I think that that is part of our training as in our modern society, but also as women in our society. I mean, we're taught to believe that at the root, people are good, and to give them the benefit of the doubt. And especially as teachers, as empathic people, we want people to be successful and to learn and grow and make mistakes. We tell our kids, make mistakes, and you grow from those. When you've made a mistake, it's not you're a bad person or it's a bad thing. If you consciously do it and you keep doing it, well then yeah, but we all make mistakes and we grow from those. So it's tough when you're trained that way, and we tend to be that kind of people to begin with as teachers. We practice that all through our career too. Um, yeah, I could see how that would be hard to do, but good on you for spotting that in yourself and deciding to uh, build your strength around being able to read people.
And as you talked about that, I realized that teaching then reinforced that, because there were some students I knew were who they were, and few, but there was like a handful that were truly kind of scary down deep. Like
Yeah, yeah.
probably might be a little psychopathic, sociopathic in nature. But in order to survive the year with them, I would dig deep, 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 deep to look for the slightest bit of something
Mhm.
so positive and work with it,
Yep.
in the hope that we could nurture this part. But I think that that's part of my blessing and curse, is that I dig, dig, dig too deep.
Well, in your real life, outside of a job, you get to decide when to turn that off. When in within a job, you've got to do what you got to do.
Excellent.
That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening.
Until next week, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It's produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so that you won't miss your chance to join our retired road trip.